Are you struggling to get your first internship as an engineering student? Or are you a new grad who just can't seem to get a single interview? Well, don't worry, because we've all been there. With no real experience to our names, we just throw any technical project that we have onto our resumes in hopes that someone will notice us. But do you know if those projects are actually helping you get more interviews? Well, my friends, today I'm going to share with you the 3 reasons why your resume projects are actually hurting your chances of getting new interviews. But I'm also going to show you how to fix them. Let's discuss. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Matt, and today I will be going over the 3 reasons why your resume projects might actually be hurting your chances at getting interviews. I'll also be sharing some suggestions on how you can fix those problems so you can start seeing results faster without having to completely overhaul your resume. Reason number 1 for why your resume projects are not working is because it's not relevant to the jobs you are applying for. Hiring managers are mostly concerned about whether or not candidates have the required skills listed out in the job posting. Your resume is really supposed to tell you whether or not you are competent for a job, and many hiring managers will use the resume as kind of a checklist to see if you have the relevant skills. If you have a project on your resume that doesn't have any of the required skills for this job, most people will just overlook it. For example, if you were a hiring manager for a firmware position that required an advanced knowledge of C, and I came to you with a resume that had a lot of JavaScript and Python and web app frameworks, does it really look like I have an advanced knowledge of C? Probably not. You're just going to toss that resume off the side in favor of someone else's. So, how can you tell if your projects are irrelevant? One thing that you can do is find the job postings for the last 3 jobs that you applied to and put them all together in a list. Organize all of the required skills in a list. Then go through your resume and highlight all of the words in your resume that relate to one of the specific skills in one of those 3 job postings. Then go back through all of your projects and look. If your projects do not have at least 2 highlighted words in them, that project is probably irrelevant for the jobs that you want. So, what can you do about this? You basically have 2 options. You can remove that project to make space for some other section where you can include relevant experience. But option 2 would be to make a new project that has a handful of those relevant skills and add it there instead. I will be making a future video that will actually go over how to do this, how to find holes in your resume, and how to build a project around it. So just be on the lookout for that. Reason number 2, your project code is messy and out of date. First of all, if you don't have your source code already in a GitHub repo with the link to the repo in your resume, go do that first. Not every manager is going to want to see your source code, but some love it, and they'll actually use it as a way to verify that you did the project. It's also a really good way for them to see your coding style and how you separate out a project and structure it. But this can be completely detrimental if your code is not readable or your project is kind of just splayed out everywhere. So, how do you fix this? Well, structure your project well and write readable code. So, here are some tips on actually writing some readable code. Give your variables and functions useful, meaningful names. Okay? I also don't want you to condense a lot of operations into a single line. When you read through this, it should read as plain language that anyone could understand. Tip number 2, if you cannot write plain language style code and it's very difficult to understand what the code is saying, if it's not obviously self-explanatory, then you need to add some comments. Just explain what's happening in simple terms. You can even do it over a block of code. And the last tip I have is make sure that you separate out your code. Don't put everything into one single file. Try to separate things into modules that make sense together. So put all of your code that relates to one kind of topic into one file. This makes it very easy for someone who's trying to find like one specific area of your code and just be able to skim through it. The last thing that I wanted to mention just before I move on to reason number 3 is that you need to keep your code up to date. As you continue learning better ways to write code, better ways to do things, you need to make sure that your projects are reflecting that. So you may be figuring out better ways to write certain algorithms, or you're learning some industry standards for writing C code, for example. You have to make sure that you go back through your projects and update them with your new knowledge. Your project should be a reflection of your knowledge now, today, not of your knowledge from a year ago. Because you've done some growing and some learning, you want to make sure that your hiring managers are seeing your work as good as it is right now. So, what do I want you to do? Go through all the projects on your resume and find the project that you finished at least 6 months ago. Anything 6 months and beyond, you need to go back in there, reread the code, and update it if necessary. There might be some parts where you're like, oh, I could optimize this, I could rewrite this, this would make more sense. That's the stuff that you want to change. Make sure you go in and keep everything readable. And just remember the tips that I put in as well about writing readable code. Implement those in every project going forward and all the ones that you have on your resume. Having readable code means that you are going to write good code for a company that employs you. If you've got really messy code, no one is going to want to hire you. So just keep that in mind when you're going back through your projects. And last but not least, reason number 3 why your resume projects are not working. You are writing about the wrong thing. I see this way too often where people write about what their project is and what it does when they really should be writing about how they made it and what it accomplished. I know you're proud of your project and you want people to know all that your project is and all that it can do, but trust me when I say that hiring managers don't care. They do not care about your RC car that you made that has object detection and object avoidance and things like that. They want to know about the tools and technologies that you use and why you use them. They want to know what sensor did you use for object detection and how did you interface with it. They want to know what wireless communication protocol do you have between the car and the controller and why did you pick that one specifically. Answering these kinds of questions is far more effective at showing off your technological knowledge than just telling them what the project is. It shows that you understand the skills that you have and understand the technology that you're working with, which is far more valuable to the employer. Same thing kind of goes for statements where you just list all the technologies that you use in a given project. Unless you can write about one of those technologies at length, talk about how it achieved some goal for you or hits like X metric for you, you don't really need to include it in your resume. Instead, what you can use is the README file in the GitHub repo that you now have for this project. In that README file, you can put, all of your technologies that you use, list every single one. You can also use it for any additional information that you really want to share with someone. So in there, that's where you can talk about what your project is, what it does, all the cool things, maybe even the motivation behind doing it if you want to. but that stuff should not live in your resume. It's useless in your resume. If a hiring manager really is interested in your project, they will open up your GitHub and they will read through that README and they'll get all the information that they're looking for. But that stuff just should not live within your resume. So what should you do to figure out whether or not you're writing about the right thing in your resume? Well, you have to read through all the bullet points for each of your projects and determine about whether or not you are writing a what statement or a how statement. A what statement will be, what does the project do and what can this thing do? Whereas a how project is a how statement is you're saying how you made the project or how some part of your project achieves some sort of goal. That's the really important part. So if you have any statements in there that are what statements, so what it does, take it out and replace it with a how statement. So to do this, you can just think about a skill that you used or a technology that you used, maybe one that you want to highlight. It would be really good if it was in the job posting. And then write about how you use that skill to accomplish some sort of goal. Okay, let's recap the 3 key reasons why your resume projects are not working and how to fix them. Reason number 1, it's not relevant to the job you're trying to get. So go back through your projects. If they don't have at least 2 relevant skills related to the jobs that you were trying to get, preferably the last 3 that you applied to, get rid of the project. It's not relevant. Number 2, your code is messy or outdated. If the project was created or finished 6 or more months ago, you need to go back and reread through the code and fix it up. Make sure the code is readable, make sure that everything is modular and makes sense. And number 3, you are writing about the wrong things. Go back through all of your statements, all of your bullet points on your resume about your projects and make sure they are not what does this project do statements. You want to convert all those statements into how did I do this and what did I accomplish? So think about these 3 problems for a minute. Just think about them. What do you think your projects are currently suffering from? Of those 3, what are your projects suffering from? Here's what I want you to do. Go down to the comments. Let me know, of the 3 key reasons, which one do you think your projects are suffering from the most? Which one are you guilty of? Because I know you are guilty of at least one. I know I was guilty of a lot when I started. Which one do you think is your biggest problem right now? Then I want you to go open up your resume and find where that problem exists and then fix them using the steps that I gave you today. You can do this eventually with the other 3 steps, but just for now, do the 1. I guarantee that once you finish working through and fixing those 3 problems, I guarantee that your resume project will be far more effective at showing off and showcasing your skills to hiring managers. This will make landing your first engineering job so much easier and set you up for your career in the future. So I hope this video was helpful. I really appreciate you watching it, and I hope that I gave you some valuable insights into how to make your resume projects that much better. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you next week.